You have questions, we have answers. This is Jane Muller.
And this is Ken Muller. Welcome to our show, all about real estate with Ken and Jane. A couple of weeks ago, we did a session on negotiations in real estate and how everything in real estate, like in life, is about negotiations. So we're not going to repeat what we covered in last week's show, but we left off.
Last week, a few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago, right. A few weeks ago, we spoke about how the list agent, how when you meet with the potential seller, you start, that's negotiated. You negotiate about the house, the pros, the cons, and you come up with the list price. You come up with, pricing strategies, and then we covered the evaluation of competing offers and how you negotiate with the buyer's agent, or more often how the buyers negotiate amongst themselves based on what their presentation has in terms of their offers, what it entails. So now we're going to pick up with negotiating. One of the key aspects in any residential transaction is the home inspection, and negotiating the home inspection request. And then now this is where, as we said in negotiation, one of the premises of any good negotiation is understanding really what the other side wants. And oftentimes you'll have the and if the seller doesn't have a clear expectation in mind, they could literally freak out, because what do you hear oftentimes from sellers when they get the report? They don't even look at what the buyer's attorney is requesting or what the repair requests are. They look at the report and they see it's 100 pages, and they basically say, "Oh my God, it's a 100-page report. They must not want the house." They're taken back and so personally affected that their mindset is. So one of the things I think which is so key in understanding home inspection is if a good list agent will always hold the hand of the seller and explain to them that you're going to get a very lengthy home inspection report, because it's the job of the home inspector to list everything and anything that's wrong with the house. That could be an upgrade, that could be an improvement, it could entail cosmetic improvements and things that are, so, and it's going to have photos, it's going to have, it's going to have a lot of boilerplate language in it, so it's going to be lengthy. It could be 80, it could be 100 pages, but usually there's a summary, but not to panic, because usually, in most cases, the buyer is not requesting that you address everything under the sun. They're going to give a list of things, and then that's where the negotiation. So having the seller brace for the onslaught of getting the report is the first step in getting them to the right mindset and moving forward with the negotiations.
Ken, you're absolutely right. How many times, generally speaking, the buyer attorney will send out the report, home inspection report, accompanied with a home inspection repair request, right? Mm-hmm. But not all the lawyer doing that. Sometimes they just send out report. They say the list to follow, right?
Yeah.
How many times the moment that it hit to the seller's inbox, I get a call. I'm driving here. They call me. Yeah. Did you see? I said, see what? They said, did you see that report? Yeah. I said, no, I haven't. Why not? I said, because they didn't give us the list yet. So I said, no, don't read it yet until you get a report and a request. Normally what we do, once we get a request, we will read the request first and then co-reference back to the report. Right. And then I will go through it with the owner to tell them what I think is really valid. Sometimes it may not be valid, right? Sometimes it is. And if it is, the item is truly a issue, doesn't matter you sell to this client, right, or you sell the other client, the problem not going to go away. So better just fix it first time to close than fight, and then same problem or more problem will come back again. Okay? Right. Because every time the home inspection depends on home inspector. They may look at a different area. They may find more or less, right? But if they found something this round, it's seller's obligation to disclose it if you know anything wrong, right? Sure. So that's why I always help the seller to get a quote to understand what's, like you said, to talk to the other side to know exactly what's the most important thing for them, right? I just want to share two stories. Just happened now. Right? Sometimes when the market start to slow down or the market have lot of buyers sense the market is going down, even though there's no evidence showing it's going down. But at the moment, it's just like a target war between seller and buyer. Depends, case by case, who is more kind of which market we are, seller or buyer, right? It's case by case. I do have two cases I would like to share. First case, the buyer did a home inspection. Okay, the roof is new. The window is done, and the siding is old but in good shape, right? Everything was like, after the home inspection, the buyer didn't talk to the buyer agent. Luckily, that agent know me for all these years. We both very strong agent, right? So they just tell the lawyer send to seller, they want a $45,000 credit.
And you're saying the roof and windows were new?
Everything new. They just sent $45,000.
Did they give a justification?
Yeah, I read it. They were saying, first of all, they said your sewer line need to be replaced. Okay? And I said, on what base, right? Secondly, they gave a very high quote for the sewer line. And then they said all the siding has to be replaced. And on what base, once again, right? And then they were saying, I want you to remove the tree. I want you to, but the tree is healthy. Seller doesn't, so, if you think that tree is extremely important to you, when you make an offer, you should right there say, well, this offer subject, the owner removed the tree.
Unless there was a technical reason why they wanted the tree removed, if it was affecting the sewers or was against the foundation of the house. But if it's just because
they just don't want the tree in the backyard because they believe the tree may, because it's a big tree, it's a fully grown tree.
The storm falling or...
Yeah, the storm possibly may down, but if it down, I don't see they're going to fall on the roof because they have a deck there. Yeah. So the deck, the railing will keep that falling on the deck rather than on the roof. Secondly, they said that the tree roots may going to hurt the foundation, but the tree is far enough. There's that big deck in between. So, but the house, they did a home inspection. There's no structure issue. There's no way to believe the tree roots when close. If you have a water issue, if you have a structure issue, that would be right. Purely just $45,000, just see how much they can get.
Right.
So that point, the seller said, I just want to cancel. Okay?
Right.
I said to the seller, look, just let me handle this, right? I look at it, I said, okay, a few shingles, we can get a quote, get it fixed. I think another one item they said, I said, I think that's valid, right? They said a lot of other things. That's what actually wasn't true because we went back with a buyer agent and a buyer that they said the toilet was something wrong, go there flush, it was work perfectly. So anyway, we did the sewer inspection. And then they just need to be jack cleaned. So the seller paid to get a jack cleaned less than $1,000.
Right.
And everything's done. So, but once again, if not for me and that agent, they still would be killed. Okay?
Right.
Because the buyer, I don't know, the buyer just want to take advantage or the buyer listen because they're first-time home buyer. Yeah, sometimes you have to see they may not do it deliberately. They will just want to protect themselves. They listen to the wrong advice by their home inspector.
Right.
Or their friends, or they Googled it. Who knows? Now they think AI know everything today.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, is me and the other agent work so close together to get to the bottom of it.
Right.
We dressed, because I don't want to cancel. I said, no, let me try it.
Yeah.
At the end, we got the bottom of it, and to resolve the buyer's concern. Each concern, they came back the house, they checked it, they can call the inspector, they can come back recheck it. At the end, they realize actually their worry was not valid. So we certified the home inspection for that deal, right? But
so that's a case where you dissected each one of their demands and either addressed it or quantified it and repaired it, and basically took apart that $45,000 and
that's not valid. Another one was really even that one. I think is the buyer. To be honest, I think is the buyer. They did a home inspection, and first of all, when they offer, they try to offer $25,000 lower, and the seller didn't accept it, so they had to come up, right? There wasn't full price anyway. So at the end, they came up that was not full price. So at that time, the seller liked the strong buyer and they accepted, right? The home inspection, they give us all these. Well, first of all, they don't say anything. They just so quiet. At the end, we thought we week from the closing. Seriously, Ken, 1 week from the closing, we don't even agree with the home inspection, and they point a finger. They say the township did something and damaged the sewer. I thought I never heard of such thing. Township damaged the sewer. So and then with the seller at the end, the seller based on what they give us the quote. I read it. I thought it's impossible. I think maximum $5,000 is for everything. Maximum. I don't see anything more than that. So the seller offered them. They said no, they want more. And the seller said, I want to cancel because you're not in good faith, right? Because they only tell us the problem week before. So I quickly have to organize, get my own quote, right? I mean, what I believe is to have a base, right? The quote came only third
of what
they originally their quote, and that means clearly it's not good faith, right? Third, if we are similar, I get it, or half the third, and then they quote the township. Obviously, I quote the township. They quote the township. Township have to stop what they're doing, come here to put out this fire. Township did it and said there's nothing wrong with the sewer. So because they believe the only reason township get involved because they blame township did something wrong. Otherwise, township would never get involved in buyer and seller business.
No.
So they came, they checked, there was nothing wrong. At the end, the seller at that point, when the seller saw only one item is valid, which is only a third, the seller wanted to retract the $5,000 offer, but the buyer just want to close by then. So they just want to close. Seller said, I don't want to close. And the seller attorney said, we better close because otherwise buyer can sue us, right?
Yeah.
Enforce the contract.
And then they can prevent them from remarketing it. And
So, a lot of time, right? I mean, regardless, I'm just want to talk to heart with the buyer, right? Regardless, you just scared. Just by nature, it's a big purchase. It's new. I mean, you're worried, or
it could be both. It could be a combination that they're scared and also want to see if they can shave off a little bit.
But this is not the market yet.
But it's not the market.
This is not 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
This is not a market to do so because luckily, I mean, the seller offered 5. Just actually, is more than they should offer. And that's before we got the quote because but the buyer, in fact, accepted, couldn't wait. The seller want to cancel. They just don't want to cancel.
Right. So they basically, without knowing it, subconsciously, they had it's called a BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, meaning what's their bottom line where they're willing to walk away. And they had that in their mind that if the original demand of the buyer was they want that $40,000 or $45,000 credit, the seller was saying, nope, I'm going to walk away from it because I have a backup plan either to remarket the house or stay in the house. And the buyer has to know what their BATNA is too.
Yeah.
So they may have been between a rock and a hard place. Maybe their current house, maybe their lease was up and they already had given the landlord notice. So there's always underlying things. So when you can negotiate from a position of power, and if you know what the other side's scenario is, it makes your position more stronger
and
more
also for these two, right? You should listen. You should get real good advice
and negotiating good faith.
Yeah, good faith. I mean, I know when you represent a seller, you want to do less as possible. When you represent a buyer, you want as much credit as possible for your client. But you have to in good faith.
Right.
You can't just take advantage of the situation because the market is not that bad yet. The seller do have an option to remarket the property. So that's something, you have to take consideration. You may lose the house.
Yep. All right. It's a good time to take a break. We'll be right back after these messages. Okay, welcome back to our show. So we're continuing our discussion on negotiations with the home inspections. And I think, Jane, again, to reharp this whole point of BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, that's very important that each side in any negotiation in life, you have to know what your bottom line is and at what point what's your best alternative if you don't get what you want or you don't reach. If the strike price for the seller was, I'll give a $20,000 credit, but I'm not going to give a $40,000 credit, just to use an example. And then they have to be willing and ready to walk away.
I think it's deeper than that, Ken. First of all, right? You said the nail hit the head, right?
Yeah.
It's really what's the other alternative? If what a buyer asking is valid. The seller, regardless your bottom line is 5,000 or your bottom line is 0 or your bottom line is 20,000, you have to take care of the thing.
Because of the fact that it's going to resurface itself and it so becomes
it's not going to go away.
It's a business decision then. That oftentimes there's so much emotion, which is all part of negotiation, that sometimes you have to, the job of the list agent and the buyer agent is to remove the emotion and the anger and the, the personal feelings and say, look, it's a business decision, but the best way to do it, like you said, is to quantify, negotiate in good faith and really see what's legitimate, what's not legitimate, get multiple quotes, come up with what it really, is there truly a problem? If there is, yes, then let's address it and what will it cost to fix it? But and then you can quantify it and then try to make it try to be as neutral in the approach, objective in the approach, and not say, oh, they're trying to bring up something that's not justified.
Yeah, I mean, I give you I give 2 examples. The buyer try to give over examine, try to get more credit from the seller, right? Give a much higher quote and things like that. Now come back to the seller, right? I do have a client. The buyer did home inspection. I believe, what the points, some of them are valid. The seller say no. I give you an example on the seller side, right? The buyer did home inspection. They said something wrong with the deck. Okay? The seller said, no, I have a permit.
Okay.
But I said to the seller, they have a permit. Doesn't mean they did job correctly. Sometimes, right, you have a permit. Yeah, you would think the contractor did the right thing. You would think township did the right thing. But everybody's human.
Or it could be a combination of the fact they had a permit, the deck was done 20 years ago, and there might be things that need to be addressed on the bracing and the things that have support,
exactly.
Or there's been sinking, or maybe there's a sinkhole, or there's something that's caused the foundation of the footings to move, or there's decay.
No, they were saying that the structure wasn't right. But once again, right, at the end, I said to the seller, let's do this way, right? If you have a contractor, call your contractor. If you don't have a contractor, you want to Google, you Google one. Okay, I will give you the contractor I always work and trust to come give you third-party opinion. In this case, now third-party, I'm on your side. It's our opinion, internal opinion. At the end, we confirm there's something wrong. So we fix it. We try to remarket it. But once again, right, seller can't be too stubborn. I have another case, right? Earlier this year, I represent a family, and then the buyer paid over asking, everything was good. And the home inspection, they said the sewer is a problem. They said the basement wall have a structural issue. Okay? The buyer got quote. Okay? I spoke to the buyer contractor. After I discussed with them, even though I'm not a licensed contractor or engineer or anything, but just based on my own experience, read the report, talk to various parties, I knew there's something wrong. So I suggest our client to get an engineer. I recommend them my engineer. The client didn't want to know it. The client just believed this, the buyer just make up story. So they Google somebody, did it, okay? They said, no, there's not a problem. But when read that report, there was not the right wall. It's not the right. They said one, they have a problem, but small. But they didn't see the other wall. When I called the engineer, he said the owner only told him one wall. I said, no, there's 2 walls. That was worse. So long story short, the seller feel kind of which side I'm on. So, right. And then the obviously the seller very angry, they canceled it. And then they couldn't sell the house. And then they hired another agent. And 6 months later, they sold like 60,000 less.
Yeah,
60.
So bottom line is, they would have had they made a
negotiate
and made an informed decision. Business from a business decision, they would have been in the had they gone ahead and sold.
Yeah, they sold 6 months earlier.
Would have had a higher price, even with the credit given for the repair.
60,000 because they sold 60,000 less. I saw on MLS. But once again, right, some seller he is engineer by trade. He think he's engineer. He know. At the end of the closing number shows. You know, I mean, the buyer has a point. I mean, as your listing agent, I'm not going to, you know, sit on their side because the reason I disagree with my client is because to protect them.
To protect them because you can see the wave that's coming if they don't address it.
I see the issue. And then also the sewer issue. I see the issue. I see.
Certain things are unescapable with home inspections. You have roofs that are in need of replacement or repair, HVACs that are not working, water infiltration, mold. Some of those things are just going to resurface every single time. And then you have the issue with not only with the resurfacing, but with disclosure. Because once you know there's an issue with a water leak or water infiltration in the basement or mold that's shown up, then there's an issue ethically and legally. You have to disclose it on the seller. You have to modify the seller disclosure.
Absolutely. And also with the mold, Ken, you not only address the mold, you have to address the cause of the mold.
Sure.
If you only dress the mold, a lot of sellers said, "Why do I have to do that? Waterproofing."
Because it's going to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
going to come back.
Yeah.
So that's why, as an agent, our role is to explain to our client, right, and then to outline the solution and try to make sure we understand, regardless your buyer side or seller side, you have to know, you know, what is a must to do.
Right.
The item that's going to go away. But what's other items?
Other items might be
maybe negotiable, much more negotiable.
Right, and much more negotiable. But there's certain things that are on the must list. Because of their,
for example, you will say what items may be negotiable. For example, some windows may lose the seal, right? So that, you know, it is structure issue. Yes, it is. But it is negotiable. Yes, it is. So that's not, it's a structural, but that can somewhat kind of negotiable because I did have many homes I sold. Either I put on a licensing node window as it is, or the window in dining room as it is, you know, or you just leave it open and later on negotiation, right? Once again, Ken, you said earlier, depends on, do you have an alternative? If you have another buyer want the house, you know, alternative, so you will take a tougher stand. If you have a time string, you would really need, depend on closing deal on time, maybe you have to make certain concession. This is really business decision.
And you could look at the flip side. If you're the buyer side and they're selling, let's say they're selling their current home, and it's under contract and ready to close, contingent upon them buying this home. And then the buyer might say, well, I really want, by their mindset, they have a certain list of things, you know, A, B, and C that must be done. But the windows might be in the second bucket of things that might be their wish list. And they have to decide, do we want to rock the boat, kill this deal, and then we have to kill our price for a cost of the window replacement of a broken seal for maybe one or two windows. So
you think about it, the home inspection, even though if you don't have for sale condominium, just say you live in your own condo, you're going to rent it, you have no condo, or you live with your parents, you absolutely have no time stream. Think about it. If it's just a window, right, replace the window itself or replace the glass, right, depends on the situation. How much it's going to cost versus, right, you already spent a lawyer fee, you already spent a home inspection, you already applied for the loan, and you already did all this time invested.
So you invested thousands of dollars already.
Yeah, you already invested a couple of thousand by this point. So really, sometimes, you know, I mean, plus if you buy another house, that house may have other issues, right? You know, so this is kind of... you know, you have to, like you said.
It comes down to a business decision.
Yeah, business decision. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, I always advise, regardless seller and buyer, first of all, in good faith. Everything you have to be in good, because this is very emotional. If one party doesn't trust the other party, most deal get killed. It's not because the home inspection itself. It's because they lose. Yeah, they lose trust with each other, or they get angry, let emotional take a toll, right? It's very much because of that, okay? First of all, just good faith. Doesn't matter what you do. What comes around, what goes around, right? Be good faith. Secondly, be reasonable.
Yeah.
Always put yourself in that person's shoe.
And third, listen to what the other side wants. That's a good thing.
When
talk
you
to the
listen,
buyer agent
it doesn't mean you're
great, but at least you absorb and you understand what they're really asking for and why they're asking for it, and then you can have some intelligent data you can go back with and try to see if their concerns are legitimate or not.
I think a lot of time you said it very well. Listen, when you listen to the other party, right, you may discover there's a win-win solution. Okay. For example, right, we did have one item we were arguing left and right, mm-hmm. And then by talking to them, and I realized because my client had a pool, right? Mm-hmm. They had a robot there. My client moved to Florida, doesn't need it, right? And then we have some other snowblower and things like that. The seller which is going to either give away, just sell them for very cheap. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I said, you know what? Why we argue, right? That's, maybe I can talk to seller, leave you the robot. That's a few $100s, right? And a snowblower, you definitely need it. They were going to sell it. Why, right? At the end, we settle that way. So in that way, both parties feel they get some. Not 100% they want it because seller could sell the item for $50, $20, $80. But at the end of the day, they felt they did a good thing for the buyer, help them a little. So that's not kind of like, and the buyer side, if they have to buy those items, there's cost too. So that's kind of at the end, happily meet somewhere.
Yeah. And what they say with negotiations, sometimes the gauge of a fair settlement is when neither side is entirely happy.
Yes.
But neither side is entirely disappointed. That means it's kind of neutral. That means both sides, there's a give and take. Like you said, a tug of war to use the buyer and the seller, and they kind of reach a neutral position where they can live with it. And that means it may be fair. Now, that's kind of a general rule of thumb.
For the seller, most seller like my client, right? They sell the house like they married their daughter. They really want the buyer to be happy.
Yeah.
You don't want a buyer every day think something, just cursing the house, cursing the seller. So, at least all my sellers always, in good faith and try to work with them.
Yeah.
As long as they are reasonable.
And they love their home and they want to see the same TLC given to their home by the new owner.
By the new owner, yeah.
So that's a win-win situation when both parties
because
agree.
Our end goals is the same.
Yeah.
We want to hand over the house to the beautiful family who enjoy and appreciate the house. And that's what the buyer wanted. They want to buy a house in goodwill and with the house.
And a lot of times they want to buy that house because they see the successful and happiness of the family that sold it. And it's goodwill, a good fortune.
That's right.
Yeah. And the house is truly blessed based on the family that was in there.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we covered one aspect more of negotiation. We still have other issues with the appraisal, closing issues.
We'll talk about
those in future shows. All right. We hope you guys enjoyed this show. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.